State Prison holds some of the most violent inmates in California.
Things can go from zero to chaos in about 2 seconds.
Both of you, hands up, let's go. Hands up.
There's a couple things you have to accept when you walk into these walls. One is you may not walk out.
A prison where correctional officers are locked in a deadly fight for survival.
I stepped into basically a real trouble prison.
I like to stab people. That was my thing. I like to stab people. That was my thing.
I heard the razor start to cut, and so I figured I'd better grab the razor, and I tried to get him off me.
At the time, I didn't realize I was being stabbed. I was covered in blood.
There ain't no God right here that's gonna stop it, you know?
Now, inside the prison code.
Let me ask you a few questions. Did you used to get beat up in high school or middle school? Did you used to get your lunch money taken from you all the time? Did people used to bully you and taunt you and stuff you in a locker in middle school or high school? Did you have a hard time trying to make friends? Did you seem like you were a loner or an outcast? You know, if you answer yes to any of those questions or similar type questions, then I would say that you really need to evaluate whether or not the corrections environment is for you. Because one thing I can tell you is if you have a chip on your shoulder because of how you might have been treated growing up and you feel like you want to get payback to society, this is not the job to do it because you can get yourself and other people seriously hurt and you could end up losing your life or somebody else can lose their life because you're trying to go on this revenge tour. So stay with me in this video and I'm going to provide you with a few basic tips that in my opinion, I believe can help you with having longevity in this career. Now, let me give you my disclaimer. I'm an idiot and I'm an idiot in law school. So anything and everything that I say in this video, it is of my own opinion and I do not speak for any government entity in whole or in part. So let's get started. I don't know what it is about the jail and the prison environment in America, at least, but it seems like America loves watching prison shows, jail shows, you know, the MSNBC Locked Up. I mean, that was like a huge thing. But there's a lot of people that have curiosity about the correctional environment, and you have a lot of people that want to work in corrections. But there's a lot of misconceptions about the profession. I'm not going to necessarily get into a lot of the misconceptions, but I'm going to try to provide you with 3 things that need to be in your foundation if you decide that you want to do this as a career. And as I said, with asking those questions, if you know you want to get this job and you want to feel like you have this authority because you want to get payback because you used to get beat up or you used to get your lunch money taken from you, this is the wrong profession. Because as I said, you can get yourself seriously hurt and you can get other people seriously hurt and or killed. Now, the 2 biggest weapons that you are going to have, because I don't know where you're going to work or where you're going to apply, you know, depending on the department you work for, you can have various, you know, goodies on your duty belt to protect you and protect others. But the biggest weapons that you're going to have in this profession, it is going to be your words and your brain. And then for an honorary mention, I'm going to say it's all about respect. Those are going to be, those 3 things need to be in your foundation if you decide you want to get into that profession. A lot of times, a lot of things can be avoided just simply by, you know, the way you talk to the inmates, because you have to understand, right? Now, we didn't put them there, right? If they're in jail or in prison, we didn't put them there. We just have to make sure that, you know, we provide custody care and all that stuff while they're in there for whatever time length they're in there. I know some people, you know, that I work with, they don't want to think about the compassion aspect, but you do have to look at the compassion aspect because you got to understand you have this alpha male environment where these grown men and grown women. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm talking about male facilities. So you're in an environment with this alpha male environment where they've had their freedom taken away. They've had their families taken away. Everything has been taken away. And the only things that they have left that they will guard with their lives is their name and their self-respect. That is all that they have. And I'm telling you, they will protect that with no other. They will protect it. So when you're dealing with, you know, the inmates, you know what I'm saying, it's about respect. You know, you just talk to them, you know, as you know, like they're a human, because a lot of times when they're in the system, you know, they're going to feel a certain kind of way. And you have to remember too, right? If you talk to the inmates greasy, and let's say you spark something and now y'all getting down and y'all fighting, you got to understand that if that inmate is fighting a CO, that inmate is not just fighting the CO. That inmate is fighting the person that might have snitched on them, that got them locked up. That inmate is going to be fighting the officers that arrested them. That inmate is going to be fighting the jury that convicted them. That officer is going to be fighting the judge, you know what I'm saying, that handed down the sentence. So just know that if you're fighting that inmate, they're not just fighting you. They're going to be fighting everything that had to do with them being locked up. Now, whether you want to agree with that or not, that's on you. That's something you have to deal with. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that, if you're looking for a fight, if you want to come to work and you just looking to start mess and I can guarantee you there's going to be some people that is willing to oblige your request, and they will get down with the get down. Another thing is you want to be firm, fair, and consistent. Now that should be self-explanatory, but I'm going to explain more on the fair and consistent part. Now there's going to be times now in the state of California, the inmates, they're racially segregated. That's not government sponsored. That's inmate sponsored. They do that on themselves or to themselves. So however you treat one inmate, you have to treat the rest of them. And there's been times, right? They're going to try. So the black inmates, they might come up to me and they would say, oh man, can you do this for me, do that? Or, can you give me 2 more minutes on the phone? Or, and we're locking down for count or whatever. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying? You treat everybody the same, because I'm telling you what, if you let that if say I'm black, right? If I let that black inmate get that extra 2 minutes on the phone, now I got to let everybody else that comes up to ask me, I got to give them 2 minutes. And if I don't give them 2 minutes, then that's going to look really bad. So whatever you do, make sure it's fair across the board. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to seem like you're impartial. Now, there's some things that you can't control. There's going to be certain opinions that inmates are going to have about you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But just make sure that, you are firm, fair, and consistent in what you do. Now, this is not one of the things that I brought up in the initial video, but the job of a correctional officer, depending on the security level of the facility you're working at, it can weigh heavy on you. It's a very treacherous environment. It is a very violent environment. It's almost like there's no rules in that. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be very, very careful in that environment. You have to learn ways of coping with stress. A lot of people in the law enforcement profession in general, but more specifically within corrections, you have high suicide rates, you have high substance abuse, alcoholism, all different types of things, because the job, it is so stressful. You know what I'm saying? You're seeing things that people will go to the movies to pay to see, right? If you watch some action-packed movie and there might be some scene in the jails or the prisons in the movie where it's violence, and again, people are paying to watch this entertainment, or they're at home and they're watching this entertainment. Well, for you, if you work in the correctional environment, you're going to have a front row seat to a live, show where it's actually going to happen. And I've seen some bad things, man, dudes getting stabbed, the mess up. I remember I seen a dude one time, he got punched in the face and his nose started leaking like it was a water faucet, almost like if there was like a little knob on the side of his nose and you just twisted the knob and then the blood just start coming out like a water faucet and just accumulating on the ground. I mean, I've been in situations where you would see blood everywhere because it was just a lot of violence. Those things are going to weigh on you because those are things that, the human eyes are not supposed to see. You know what I'm saying? And that's going to take a toll on you. And so you have to learn ways of how to cope with that and how to deal with that. Don't get into that trap of trying to self-medicate with alcohol or with illegal drugs or with other types of vices that are not healthy. If you need to go to therapy, if you need to seek some type of mental health treatment, I would advise you to do that because it is very, very important. And I want to add that the suicide rate in the correctional environment, it is extremely high. Now, don't quote me on this, but I know for a few years, at one point, it seemed like the correctional world had more suicides than the police officer world. So I'm telling you, man, it is a challenge dealing with those things, but you have to figure out a way to cope with them. Now, the other thing I would say, again, this has nothing to do with the initial things I talked about, but you want to have friends that are outside of the profession. Don't be those type of people that, you go to work and then after you get done working, then you do another shift. And then when you get off your double shift, now you're going to go have a drink with the people that you worked with or whatever the case may be. Don't do that. You want to have regular civilian friends that have nothing to do with the profession. You need to have a healthy balance. You need to have a break. You need to have that clean break when you leave the environment. You know what I'm saying? Because again, it is very stressful. It is a very toxic environment. So you want to have people that can provide some type of a normalcy, if you will. That's very, very important. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people, that, that's the job, that's all they have. I know I just kind of stuttered a little bit. That's funny, but that's all that they have. You know what I'm saying? When they go to work, because at home, they don't have anything, or in the streets, they don't really have friends. So everything that they have in terms of socializing and interacting with people, it's wrapped up in that place. But that is not healthy. That is not healthy at all. So make sure that you have some healthy balance. Excuse me. Now, I'm going to talk about the respect factor because it's all about respect in there. Now, the said rules, meaning the rules that are in black and white, if an inmate has a problem with you, if they felt like you disrespected them or did them wrong, they're supposed to go through the administrative remedy process where they write something out formally, they turn it in, it goes up the chain, and you try to resolve it administratively. Then, in the event that it cannot be resolved administratively, then it's possible that the inmate could, go to the courts to seek relief. But you have to go through the due process and you have to go through all those steps. Now, that's the said rules. But the unsaid rules is it's all about respect. And if you disrespect an inmate, um, there's no telling what the reaction is going to be from that inmate. You know what I'm saying? It could be from the inmate saying, oh, you messed up or cussing you out. And it could range from being cussed out all the way to being stabbed up and killed. You just don't know. But you have to understand that. That badge, literally and figuratively, it is not big enough to cover your behind. So you have to understand when you go in that environment and you're working in that prison, they're not going to forget how you make them feel, and they're not going to forget the things that you say to them. So you have to be very, very careful. And they will be patient. They will wait until they have the perfect opportunity to where you are isolated or to where you're in a situation where it's just you and him, and he will attack, and he will probably remind you of why he's attacking you. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying this. You don't need to be scared. You come in, you be yourself, be however you're going to be. But just make sure that you remember that it's all about respect. So even though the inmates are not supposed to put their hands on you, they will put their hands on you. They will sock you up. They might stab you up. They might stomp you out. It could be a wide range of things. So you have to keep that in mind. You know what I'm saying? And um, I've seen it. Well, I've only seen the aftermath. I don't want to get on here and lie. I've never seen it where I was standing right there and then the inmate took off on a staff member. But, I've responded to the aftermath, or I might have responded as it was going on or something. But as far as me like standing right there and then I just witnessed it, I haven't seen that. You know what I'm saying? But it happens. So you have to be careful. And depending on where you work, it could be a culture thing too. Like, I know there's some institutions where the inmates and the staff, they fighting all the time. You know what I'm saying? They're fighting all the time. So for the most part, I believe that I talked about, being firm, fair, and consistent. Your words are very important in your brain, because I'll give you an example. Now, there's going to be times where inmates have to go through the metal detector, and if it goes off, it'll detect metal. Now, here's the funny thing: it's going to detect metal usually, but that's why they'll make plastic shanks, or they'll make wood shanks, or stuff that's not metal that can still do damage. So when they go through the metal detector, if they set it off, you got to tell them go back through. Now, there's some COs, if an inmate goes through the metal detector and it sets it off, man, go back through my effing metal detector, or you clear my metal, that's their personality, whatever. That's not my style. You know what I'm saying? My style, if an inmate, sets off the metal detector, I'll just say, hey, player, one more time. I need to get that check. Come on, help me get paid, man. Go back through. And, the objective or whatever, it's still achieved. Now that's just not my style Now, again, if that's your style, I mean, whatever. But I'm just saying, you can kind of, what is that old saying? You can get more flies with honey than you can vinegar. Because again, you got to understand, like I said, it's all about your words and how you talk about things. I have inmates that I've worked on they've been on my work detail. Something might happen and there might be a spill on the floor and it has to be cleaned up. You know what I'm saying? What do you think the response is going to be from the inmate if I say, hey, go clean up that spill right now? Versus, hey man, when you get a second, man, can you take care of that spill? I don't want nobody slipping and falling. I ain't trying to get no cases. Can you handle that for me? You know what I'm saying? Just picking which way to respond. What I'm saying? Again, honey, vinegar, flies, things of that nature. So it's all up to you. But the other thing I want to say is make sure that you are yourself. Be yourself and try to be consistent. And when I say be consistent, that means, if you're not a Chuck Norris and a Jean-Claude Van Damme on the streets, and you're not a tough guy on the streets, don't come to the jail and prisons and try to be a tough guy, because I promise you, they are going to call your card. They are going to pull it, and they will challenge you. You know what I'm saying? So just be yourself. From day one, I came in and I was being myself. Now, before I came to where I work, I already had experience in law enforcement, you know what I'm saying, working in a correctional environment. So when I first started, the other COs that didn't know me, they were spreading rumors, oh, he seems to be too friendly with the inmates. And it ain't got nothing to do with being friendly. It's just, I have my own style. You know what I'm saying? The inmates, they already know. Don't come to me with no bull crap, you know what I'm saying, because I'm not going for it. They know that. But at the same time, you just treat them as a human. I'm not talking about being their friend, holding their hand, nothing like that. But a lot of times when you first start, when you're a rookie, especially depending on your skin color, well, at least, where I work, you're going to have all types of rumors said about you. There's nothing you can do about that. It's just focus on the reality. And I can definitely tell you is you want to make sure, and I mean you want to make sure that you are yourself, because the inmates, they will respect you, right? If you come to work and you're pretty much the same for the most part, they know what to expect with you, or they know how you are. You know what I'm saying? You'll get more respect that way. And a lot of times too, man, when you gain the respect of the inmates, there'll be times where they might have a hit out on somebody where they gotta stab them up or beat them up. They'll wait until you get off your shift and then they'll do it, because they'll joke too sometimes and say, hey, all that stuff happened after you went home, right? And that's just their way of kind of saying, we wasn't trying to, disrespect you, or because, when you have fights and things of that nature, you got to pack up the property, all this other paperwork. It's a lot of stuff involved. So if they respect you, you know what I'm saying? They may wait until you go home and then they'll stab somebody up, but that's things that, you would learn down the road. But for the purposes of this video, you just want to be yourself. Because when I'm at work, I be talking crazy sometimes. Nothing disrespectful, but they know how I am. You know what I'm saying? So I've built that rapport to where they know how I act. You know what I'm saying? Like you might have an inmate that's leaving an area and then he'll kind of double back and then he'll try to retrieve something. And so I might say, what, you left your cell phone or you left your drugs? What you coming back for? Now, obviously I'm not, trying to antagonize them, but they know how I am. I just be talking crazy, you know what I'm saying? But I've built that rapport over the years, you know what I'm saying? And I try to be myself. But like I said, if you wouldn't say that to an inmate, you know what I'm saying, on the street, in the middle of the night, and because you would be too scared to say it, then don't come to work and say that, because the cell warrior thing, it can go both ways. And I'll kind of explain what a cell warrior is. Now, a cell warrior is essentially, it's usually referred to an inmate, right? That an inmate, when they're outside of the cell, they don't say anything. They're very docile. They're very timid. They're very shy. They don't ruffle no feathers. But once they get behind that cell door and the door locks, all of a sudden now they turn into the Hulk. Now they turn into Wolverine or X-Men, and now they're dangerous people. So the same can be said for COs as well. You don't want to be labeled as a cell warrior. The only time that you want to talk mess to an inmate is when it's a bunch of COs and only one inmate, or when the inmate is behind a cell. You know what I'm saying? The inmates, they pick up on that. They can tell when you being a cell warrior too. I know I've seen it. Dudes that be talking greasy to some inmates, good and well that if they was in a regular unit, they wouldn't say that. And if they was on the street and they ran into the inmate, ain't no way in the world they would say that. But when the numbers appear to be in the CO's favor, you know what I'm saying, or when it appears like it's safe, then, you know what I'm saying, the CO will pop off at the mouth. So you don't want to be that type of person because, like I said, they will not forget. And whenever they have that opportunity, they will wait. If it's 20 years, they will wait. And I know that sounds crazy, but I'm being honest with you. There's been beefs between inmates where they might not have seen each other for 15 years. And as soon as they cross paths, it was on sight. I've seen it. I mean, you can be sitting in the chow hall and then some dude come off the bus and you see him and next thing you know, it's on and popping. So trust me when I say they will not forget how you treat them and how you make them feel. So you just want to, again, you just treat them like humans, but just be cautious with what you say. You know, be firm, fair, and consistent. You know, it's all about your words that you use and your brain. You want to think. You don't want to put yourself in a trick bag or put yourself in a situation that would unnecessarily get you or somebody else hurt. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I don't want to go on too long about this, but if you don't remember anything else, just remember if you want to have, you know, somewhat of a decent career, have some longevity in this profession, just know that it's going to be all about the words that you use. It's going to be about your brain and using your brain, and it's going to be about respect and how you treat them. You know, that's what's important. And some people, they think when you come into a prison, you have to be, you know, this macho man or machismo thing, and you got to come in and act like the Hulk. You don't have to do that. You don't have to come in there to be a tough guy. Just come in there and be yourself. You know what I'm saying? But just make sure, you know, yourself, whatever that is, just make sure that's within the confines of policy, you know, the laws, things of that nature. But don't try to be something that you're not. Just be yourself. They will respect you for that. And to be honest with you, the inmates, if they, you know, catch on to the fact that, you know, you're not keeping it real about yourself, they're not going to give you that respect because they know you're putting on a front. So, yeah, man, it can be a very good career pay wise. You know, you have a lot of people making six figures. You know, again, I can only speak for the state of California. I can't speak not for the state of California, but I can only speak about the state of California. You know, the COs, whether jails and the prisons, they making some good money. You know, all you need is a GED or a high school diploma. Where else are you going to go where you can only have a GED or a high school diploma and you can make six figures? You know, you have a lot of people that live comfortable lives. You have people that they travel the world. They do a lot of different things, but it's that kind of philosophy. You know, work hard, play hard, and it's a very challenging career. I don't even want to lie to you. I don't want to give you the false assumption that it's easy because some people they'll say, "Oh man, corrections is easy, man. It's like babysitting." And I get what they're saying when they say it's like babysitting, but the only problem is what daycares do you know where the other babies are stabbing each other and the other babies are stomping each other out and killing each other? You know what I'm saying? Where the other babies are in gangs and they're selling drugs and doing drugs. And so, you know, if you hear somebody saying, oh, it's just adult daycare, you know, don't, that's kind of misleading. It's kind of a disingenuous statement because on one hand, it does kind of seem like it's babysitting, but on the other hand, it's nothing like a daycare at all. It is a very violent, volatile environment, a very treacherous environment. It will weigh on you. It will definitely weigh on you. So I don't really have much more to say on this. I am going to talk a little bit more about, you know, the corrections world because I do have people that are hitting me up on Instagram, you know, DMing me, asking me questions about law school, about the correctional environment, inmate questions, things of that nature. So I'll try to roll out a few more videos. So until the next one, holla at your boy.